Victoria Lopez-Herrera, and I will be your facilitator today. I hope that we can have some time to connect, as well as hopefully share ideas, and if there are any brainstorming struggles, things like that. This is a time for us as those mid-level managers who oversee multiple areas to come together and hopefully share. So some video conferencing little tidbits. We are all now probably pros at this, but just a few little reminders to make sure that you mute your microphone. And if you can, put on your camera. It's always nice to see people. If you use your tools, you can raise your hand or you can use the chat box. The chat box will be monitored, so I do have a couple other people helping me monitor that chat box if you have questions, ideas, things like that. If you are in the chat box, if you could just make sure that you reference your institution in case someone wants to reach out directly to you or search for you in some way. This way, whenever we download the chat box, you'll be able to then make those connections and references. And if you are going to share something and raise your hand, also share again for everybody. I'm Victoria from UTSA. So this way we can continue to make those connections and hopefully learn more from each other. So I want to thank those of you who also replied to that survey that I put out as far as some ideas or just kind of to narrow down the topics that we wanted to talk about today. So here are the top 3 that was as a result of that. And I'm sure I feel like they're kind of interconnected as well. So if you kind of navigate between them, that's absolutely fine as well. But the top 3 will be staying connected with and supporting professional staff. They were kind of together. I feel like a lot of that is interconnected. And then connected with that too, I feel, is navigating work from home, right? Work that schedule, expectations, not only for yourself, but for your staff. So let's go ahead and let's open up the floor for the staying connected with supporting our staff. There were a couple of comments around, some of you have smaller staffs, or you might have shared office spaces and you're able to check in with people, and there isn't necessarily that opportunity to do that anymore, and there's some struggles around that. So what's going on for you? What is happening, and what ideas do you have to share with others about staying connected with and supporting your professional staff?
Victoria, this is Vicki. And I think that for me, I'm kind of that person that needs that social interaction. And so I struggle a little bit being by myself all this time. So Zoom has been helpful, but seeing somebody in that fashion really allows me to, individually ask them how they actually are doing. And I can, because of the visual piece, I can actually tell by the look on their face or the tone of their voice or things like that, if there needs, I need to ask further or support further or do other kinds of things for them. So I really do believe, in my case anyway, I really need that face-to-face. And so I think that's really been helpful when we've gone back and forth on emails or gone back and forth on text. That's nice. But then when we actually see each other and have those conversations, it appears that everybody kind of relaxes and breaks down and talks about what's really going on and what's really important. And I think that's valuable.
It's Brent from University of Oregon, Brent Harrison. I agree with Vicki. We've been doing that via Teams. We might start thinking of going to Zoom because you see more people. Teams is a little more limited. But the other day we had kind of a coffee time, a morning scenario where we invited everyone from our professional staff to join in and just went around and did a check-in. And just like Vicki said, you get to see faces, you get to see smiles. And I think that's really critical. And as Vicki said, a lot better than a text message or an email. So yes, I echo what Vicki said. Definitely valuable in that respect.
I think I saw someone.
I guess this is
as well.
I'm sorry. This
Go
is
ahead.
Tim Klatt. I'm the one without the picture. To follow up on what Brent was saying, we have done a lot of staff meetings with Zoom, and it is really beneficial. In fact, we did one yesterday, and all 12 of us were on the screen at once. Very beneficial in terms of being able to see each other because we aren't seeing each other each day. And the staff that I oversee, I try to stay in contact with via text, email, social media, those type of things on a daily basis, just to see what they're working on, and to just kind of follow up, touch base, and see how they're doing. So yeah, I think that people connection thing is really, really important in this uncertain time.
Hello, this is Kenny Turvis from Boston College. Yes, we've been doing all the Zoom meetings with our current staff, but one thing I did the other night was we've got a lot of staff that have gone out and worked at other universities. So we actually had a reunion, and it was after work. So we got together around 7:30 at night, and people have been in those positions before. There was 12 of us on a Google Hangout, and we got together and we were able to meet people or see people we haven't seen in a while. So that kind of brought our current staff and our past staff together.
Victoria, we have a lot of good feedback on the chat as well, if you want to go over that.
So I think that there's a question about Zoom or WebEx. I know on my campus we have WebEx, and so I'm not quite sure if other users have that too. I feel like each platform has some different offerings there, which is great. So if you have those, I think people are continuing to use that. And trying to keep up with office banter via technology, often times before lunch, grab a bite to eat and then kind of sit around for lunch hour, which is always great, good for the soul. Indiana State, they're using Microsoft Teams as well in order to keep connected with their professional staff. And Southern Miss, they are still inviting the team together for virtual meetings too. So thank goodness for Zoom, right? Anna saying, thank goodness for Zoom, woo! And those connections, it looks like a lot of people are using Zoom. Zoom. Also looking into Google Groups. So Kathy, I don't know, Katie, I'm sorry. That's one that hasn't been mentioned before. Do you want to share on that a little bit?
Yeah, I don't have much information on it yet, but we've just started to look into Google Groups because we're trying to figure out between Microsoft Teams and Google Groups what might work best for everyone, whether it's as we try to roll out virtual programming and how we're engaging with our patrons in that way, but also how we might use it for our staff. So I don't have much yet. We're still trying to figure that out.
And it looks like UT Austin is checking in daily for their staff. Are other people also doing kind of like a daily check-in or maybe more frequent, but maybe perhaps in smaller intervals? What's happening there and helping connect?
So I'm Katie from Utah State, and we are checking in every other day. And we're using WebEx. That's just what the entire university has gone to. So, and we actually still have the option of being in our offices. So kind of a uniqueness in Utah. But we are meeting every other day for half an hour just to check in. And then we've also started a shared folder where everyone is uploading projects that they're working on. So we can kind of keep track of what everyone is doing, and not in like a micromanaging way, but just we know people are filling their time efficiently, and we also know where we're overlapping on projects. So that's kind of been a nice resource for us just to see how we can connect with each other.
I see also coffee breaks. Claire is also doing morning check-ins. It sounds like Oakland is doing daily Google Meet. I know my kids are at home and they have a virtual like Google class as well. Thank goodness for technology right now, right? Are there other offerings, ideas, or ways that we are staying connected with and still supporting our staff, the ones that we are working with or supervising? Or are there any challenges that someone wants to access this brain trust for, and see if there might be some ways that this group as a whole could help somebody else out?
Chris from West Virginia. Oh, go ahead, Josh.
Okay, this is Trish with the University of Oregon, and I sit on our leadership team, and we're getting just this kind of unlimited barrage of bad news recently, and we're hearing it about 5 minutes before it's going out to all the rest of the staff. So I would be interested in hearing some of how you all are navigating that, most of which is actually being shared with the staff pretty soon after we find out, but some of which we just don't have even time to really strategize on before it goes out to the rest of our team. And so kind of, I guess, navigating within that uncertainty, how are you still supporting your teams and supporting yourself in that?
Trish, I hear you on that. You know, you get your information and then you have to disperse it in some fashion, but it's really hard when that information changes on sometimes an hourly basis. And it's hard not to kind of push almost the panic button before it changes the next time. And maybe it's not so bad, or maybe it's worse, or, that kind of thing. So we try to do we call them cascading messages out to the staff and provide as much information as we can, with the, kind of the disclaimer that you understand this is ever evolving, and what we're talking to today may be different tomorrow. I'd be interested to know too, I know Katie said they were still at their campus. How many people are, well, I can kind of see a little bit by your backgrounds, but how many people are not allowed on their campus?
Yeah, Vicki, it's Brent, University of Oregon. Actually, that's been a conversation we've had the last couple of days, because there's still, what we call those individuals that are critical staff, specifically, custodial, maintenance. That still are individuals that are coming in. I think the challenge that we have is the perspective that those people are still working and us being at home are not, even though we are. So it's just the messaging that takes place between those individuals and the people that are working remotely. And between the leadership team, we've decided that we rotate coming in on a daily basis to actually check in with those individuals, to let them know that we appreciate the work that they're doing, and message it to them that way, just to show that we are supporting them, and then hopefully reinforcing the fact that we are doing a lot remotely, our staff is doing a lot remotely, and trying to support each other to get through this really rough time. So we still do have staff coming in during our shutdown, but we feel we need to try to go the extra effort and be safe to connect with them personally, or I should say at a 6-foot distance. So just want to throw that in there.
It looks like there is also a question about some people needing to, is anyone having issues with staff utilizing emergency paid leave? It looks like there's a CPOs that are on campus and obviously doing those kinds of checks. Looks like there's also people who are, it's varied, right? There are a lot of us who are not on campus, but there are some. And I think that going back to the original question, what I found was, how do you navigate the messaging and who and what? And I think that, right, who's considered essential personnel, who is not? How do you navigate that? Who has to be on campus, who's not? Those perceptions of maybe, a value of work. I think that in particular in the areas that we are in and overseeing, kind of being part of the leadership team, but also overseeing staff, how do you stay true and navigate your values and your care for your employees and their health. I know that at UTSA we have, building attendance, and so how are we trying to find some work that is relatable, that can be done outside of the facility, but then there are other departments that have their facility staff there every day. So I don't know if anybody else is experiencing these types of things too, but any other words of wisdom, shared experiences that you might be able to offer?
Hey, Victoria, it's Becky from University of Arkansas. We're really fortunate that our campus gave directives about essential personnel work from home, and then they classify it as available. So for staff like custodial, plumbers, things like that, who can't do their job from home, they put out a set of opportunities that those folks could do online if they can, and if they can't, they're still paying them. All of our staff is finding plenty of things to do, but the struggle I'm having that I'm hoping I can find someone in here who relates is that the people that work for me are either single people in their homes that I am worried about them being by themselves and lacking kind of that connection, or they are parents of toddlers and they have their partner or they're by themselves there with their toddler. So they're sometimes starting work at 4:30 or 5 in the morning to try to get a few hours in, and then they're also working in the evenings. So I feel like I never stop because I want to be available to them and support them when they're trying to work. So I'm worrying about my staff in two very different ways, and ultimately stretching myself really thin in the process. So if anyone else is experiencing that and can give me some feedback or encouragement or how they're navigating that, I would really appreciate it.
I think that goes on to our next topic about navigating that. So yes, please.
Oh, hey, hi Becky, this is Natalie Hawkins from SIU Edwardsville. That was one of my questions with staff utilizing emergency sick leave, which they have every right to do. I have kids at home too, and the individuals that wish to utilize that is because they cannot get work done at home. And so they are utilizing that emergency sick leave, but it does present a challenge for us in our department because work is not stopping. And so now we're having to delegate those additional responsibilities to, yes, we're having to delegate those additional responsibilities, to graduate assistants. So it is becoming challenging since people are rightfully able to utilize that. Oops.
Hey Becky, Chris from West Virginia University, and I was just going to add to the university, as soon as our school system shut down, offered out the ability to flex schedule. So that was a university-wide initiative, which kind of helped in that support. I myself am at home with a 3-year-old by myself, so I really don't work at all from 8 to 5, except when he's sleeping. I hope I don't wake him up right now. But I've had actually worked with our staff to say, like, I won't be available when you need anything during normal work hours. And so instead, I'm sending emails maybe at 10, 11 o'clock at night, not expecting them to respond. But I think the directive from the university to say, hey, we know that you're going to have to flex schedule. And honestly, like, they know people aren't working 8 hours a day, but if they're being productive and they're working on projects, that's kind of been okay. And our director is in the same boat I am. So basically, our leadership team isn't able to necessarily be there all day for people. And so kind of help ease that, but it's not helping people who maybe have to wait 6 or 8 hours to get an answer on the project to move forward. And so I think for us, it's just been recognizing that there is a delay in it, and thankfully nothing is relatively urgent, and just trying to balance that. But I think going back to you, you might have to wait till the next day to respond to something, so you're not working 24 hours a day.
Others, I know we are in that unique role, Becky. I mean, like, whoa, I understand, because I have children and that are school aged and trying to be school instructor and associate director and supervise others and get my professional stuff, my professional work done, and then volunteer roles on top of that. So trying to navigate that, but then finding those boundaries for myself, and then also being gracious with the staff about, I think just to reiterate what Christopher said, here are my expectations and what's very clear, and then the flexibility of it. I think that we would have to lead by example, and perhaps, you know, so that you won't hear from me for a couple of hours, and that's okay. And I don't expect to hear from you in a couple of hours. So that's okay too.
I'm Latoya Burtis from UNLV, and I was gonna answer a question from earlier, and then the conversation just kind of kept going and going, so I might be backtracking a little bit. Okay. But to touch on the most recent part of the conversation, I think our department has talked about both sides of it, not only overdoing it, but also, well, mainly overdoing it. Like, don't stretch yourself so far that you're working 12 to 14 hours. And we've talked about, you know, cutting it off. The work will always be here. So it's very easy to check our phone all night long or be on our emails all night long. Work will be here tomorrow. So we've told our team, if there's something that's an emergency or you really need one of us, definitely pick up the phone and call us, but know when to cut it off and take time for your family or whatever it might be. I've got a kindergartner, first grader, fourth grader, sixth grader, and eighth grader at home. So I am doing the balance of trying to do the school teacher, the associate director, the programming, whatever it might be. Couple things though that we have different, we kind of planned and knew this was coming. So our whole professional staff team, we had VPNs set up and we were ready to work from home, GAs included. Our pro staff team checks in every day at 3 o'clock. And so we're touching base. We are looking at the facial expressions. And one thing we're noticing is there is a look of panic on everybody's face. And that panic is, are we gonna have a job? And so the messages that's coming from the president, that's coming from our state governor, that's coming from the president of the university, every couple hours, sometimes it's changing, sometimes it's conflicting. So one thing that we've seen just being in Vegas, which is a whole different ball game from most cities, is we've done this once before, 07, 08, when the recession hit. And so we keep reiterating that we are on a hiring freeze right now, but that doesn't necessarily mean that folks are gonna lose their job. I think our saving grace in recreation is we are a revenue generating department on campus. So just trying to reassure our team that, hey, for now, we do have a job. There might be furlough Fridays later on down the road, or, you know, there might be accommodations, but I think right now most people are concerned about whether they have a job. So I think that's another reason why we continue to check in every day rather than every other day or whatever it might be. I think another different challenge we have is we've got 175 student employees, and it was determined that they're all gonna get paid. So we took the average hours that they worked for the last 9 weeks, and that's what they're gonna get paid. So each one of our departments, we've assigned all of our student employees projects that they're gonna work on. So intramurals is looking at what sports or events can we bring, and they're working on the rules and whatever it might be. We've got fitness doing, so every department has projects that they're working on so that there's something coming out of those hours, whether it's social media posts or whatever it might be. So on top of all of our projects, we're managing the projects that these 100 and whatever students are working on as well. So we're busy, And then we've all got classes, or many of us have classes on top of that as well. So check-ins are definitely beneficial. It seems like a little bit of overkill meeting every day, but it's definitely needed just to check on their well-being. That's where UNLV's at.
Thank you for sharing, Latoya. I put in a few links of a couple of websites about, you know, just idea. It's not necessarily something brand new, you know, but perhaps to share with other staff with regard to supporting administrative staff when working from home, telecommuting, and lessons learned from China. Thinking about those, some of the things that you've all been sharing around isolation and navigating the expectations of work. So just for you to reference. Becky, do you feel like you have some things? Is there something more, you know, that you're looking for? Like we can continue to I want to make sure you're getting what you want out of this group meeting.
Yeah, I mean, it's been helpful. I think I felt bad kind of stepping away when I knew people were working early morning hours and very late at night, because they have got to be exhausted. But maybe I just need to set those boundaries for myself and communicate clearly what those are. And if I start early to support them and I take a midday break, just tell people that I'm taking these 2 hours or whatever. It's great to have permission from others.
Block out your calendar, sister.
I'll just add, in the programs world, I think that this is not a lot different than what we see during the academic year. We have our intramural staff working late at night. Our aquatic staff might be there at 5 o'clock in the morning. So you have to pick and choose your battles. And for me, like I'm an old intramural person, like I am more productive later in the day. So I might take calls early in the morning, but then I may be more productive at odder hours in the evening because that's when my brain functions the best. And so we had a staff meeting yesterday and, you know, really just kind of talked about expectations that there's not the capacity to do the normal workload. We all have things, regardless of whether we're single or have people at home that depend on us or have pets. There's something else that's drawing our attention while we're working from home. And so we do need to be productive and work on things and think about the future, but we also understand that, you know, it's not going to be a normal work day and things are changing. And so that it's okay to take some time that you need for yourself to work through the times that we're going through right now as well.
Brooke, I like your comments about, you know, not being a normal work day. We all know that that's the reality we're in. But one of the things I asked our executive team to do, because it seems like when an email comes from exec team, then everybody thinks they have to jump on it right away, is I've just asked them to, you know, between that 8 and 5 time when we normally work, and we had to do agreements and most of the people put 8 to 5, even though we know it's going to be different, is to not send out something that looks like it needs a response. Or if they do send it out, so they don't forget to send it out, say, you know, respond to this tomorrow during your work time. So they didn't feel like you said, Becky, like they have to be on all the time, because then there's no separation between home and work, you know, when you're sitting in your house trying to do it. And I think that's caused some stress with some of our staff.
Is anybody else dealing with sick time for your part-time, your student staff? This is quite possibly a Chicago only problem, but is anybody else dealing with that?
Can you give a little bit more about that? Are you saying that your student staff are using sick time? Are they allowed to use sick time?
That's what we're trying to figure out, if they are allowed to use sick time legally. So City of Chicago has a law in place that even our part-time staff accrue every 40 hours worked, they accrue 1 hour of sick time. So we're trying to figure out all the intricacies of this law and how it applies to this time. So we had students scheduled for the entire semester. Can they use their sick time for that, even though the building's now closed? That sort of thing. Is anybody else dealing with sick time?
Yes. Go ahead.
Virginia.
Hi. Yeah, Ginny Moore from Montclair State in New Jersey. And yeah, that came up and it's pretty clear. Our students can accrue 1 hour of sick time for every 30 hours worked. And as a gesture of goodwill, we're going to send that information out to them. They can enter that, they can see on their payroll platform Workday exactly how many hours they're entitled to. And we're encouraging them to take that. Because they are losing a lot of work time. It's a minimal impact on our payroll. Our state legislation is really clear. It specifically states that in a time of a medical crisis, you know, a state medical crisis, that this is an applicable use of their sick time. So we're taking the initiative, sending it out to all of our staff and encouraging them to do it.
Has there been any problems with, so we have, you know, like our front desk staff who have their regular schedule for the entire semester. And then we have students like our personal trainers and our learn to swim lesson instructors that theoretically they're going to be teaching the same session or the same client every single week, let's say Fridays at 3 p.m. But that's not a formal schedule. It's each week they decide, yeah, we're good to go again next week at this time. Any issues with that? We're getting dinged by that we don't have it in our when to work software. So it's not a regularly scheduled shift. So we're thinking we're allowed to pay 90% of our staff, but then our swim instructors and our PTs, for lack of a better term, get screwed by this.
At Portland State, we have a similar thing where all the students can use their sick leave if it was a scheduled shift. And it seems like we've been able to be fairly flexible with something like that, where if that was generally what their schedule was, then we are allowing that as well.
So when it comes to supporting staff, are there others that, it sounds like some people are able to still pay or looking for ways to pay their students. Are there other creative ways that people are navigating that particular aspect of all of this?
Tiffany here from Delaware State University. I guess we're on the opposite end of that, as we are not paying our student staff for hours that they are not working. We do have our graduate assistants still working and getting paid. So they're part of our weekly calls, and they have individual one-on-ones throughout the week, and they're working on projects. But our general student staff, and we oversee a couple of areas in the game room, the student center, campus events, and wellness and recreation. Those general students are not being paid. The university made a decision, though, that those that are federal work study students can still submit hours. I don't know that they are being required to work in every area, but they, around campus, if they're federal work study, they are allowed to submit hours. So that's it, Del State.
Jason Darby, University of Southern Miss. We were told something similar, that if they were on work study, they would still be allowed to get paid. The rest of our students, we were not able to. Only approval we got was, we do have some Group X instructors that are recording videos from home that we're using for our virtual programming, that we can pay them on the back end for that. The issue we ran into is with our graduate assistants. When we got the closure order, we were told that if they weren't going to be on our remote work from home team, that there was no guarantee we would be able to still get them their stipend paid. And so we only had 2 GAs on that team. So they actually repurposed the other 4 GAs to other areas on campus just to ensure they could get paid. 3 of them went to the union, which as of this week is now closing as well. So they're transferred back to us. So we're trying to be clever in what we can have them do. So we're going to have them help, shut down the pool that we're doing this next week. But other than that, we're trying to find whether it's a research project or helping plan like a virtual banquet or something for our undergrad students, trying to get them some kind of work. Otherwise, we were told that we weren't going to be able to get them their stipend guaranteed. So we ran into that issue.
I have been seeing both of those ends of the spectrum. So Tiffany, thank you for sharing on that side. So I think like one spectrum is the commitment to continue to pay students and perhaps finding ways to do that. And on the other side, I do know that there are institutions who have, I met someone put on in the chat room as well, they've terminated all of their student employees. There is also a question about, for institutions, or there's some of you out there who are going to be refunding or have been asked to refund some of the fees, and what is that impact looking like for you all, right? So with this impact of student fees being refunded due to no facilities, programs, and services. Is anybody else experiencing the refunds and thought about how, if you are maybe balancing both, there's a refund and you're still going to need, maybe there's something that you do need to continue to pay student employees?
Hello, yes, Bob from William and Mary in Virginia. We are going down a two-tier road with refunds right now. We got the go-ahead to refund any program registrations that were canceled. Coming up, things like personal training sessions, learn to swim programs, outdoor recreation trips, things like that. We've been asked to hold off on any memberships that were sold. And at the university level, they are discussing refunds in terms of student fees at the highest level. So we've been instructed to tell students to hold off, that a decision will be coming from up above.
Similar to Bob, this is Chris Mower at UT Arlington. Similar to Bob, we are going to refund some program fees, but the system, UT system, has decided that fees will be kept going. So we're really happy about that.
This is Trish, University of Oregon. We just found out this week that they're not charging any fees for spring term for our students. So that's a major hit. And on top of that, we are required to refund everything that we get a refund request for. And we have community memberships, faculty, staff memberships, alumni memberships as well. On top of non-credit PE classes, we're running our 4-credit PE classes, but they're also bleeding because they're being offered remotely. And a lot of people signed up for an activity class because they want to learn that activity or participate in that activity specifically. So we have opted, the leadership team has talked about we've sent out an email to our members to let them know we're closed. We're not blanket refunding, we're taking them as we come in. We've also found a lot of system limitations with Fusion, talking to our other systems and how we're able to do refunds. We've had to get kind of creative with that. My dog is choosing right now to play tug of war. So it's been very, very challenging, and we're just trying to figure out how we're going to navigate all of this and come out with any kind of semblance of wholeness or completeness.
Chris from West Virginia. We are freezing memberships right now. For most IM all access passes we do for a semester, we're actually just, if they're returning students, we're just going to apply it to the next semester. But if it's graduated seniors, then they can get the refund. But for most things, we really able to just push it forward to the next semester if it's swim lessons, we come back, et cetera, et cetera. But we're waiting on word from the university level for the membership stuff. We were told we were going to freeze it, but with the stimulus bill up in the air, we're waiting for any messages we want to follow up on that.
Hi, this is Teresa from Chico State. Hey, Trish, I would just mostly tell you, hey, just hang in there. It's all going to work out. I mean, we all know what we do, how we serve students. We are an important part to recruiting to our campuses, retaining students on our campuses. So while we keep hearing one thing and then another and who's going to work, who's not, we're going to have programs. This is all going to work out at the end. I mean, it's unprecedented. We all know that, but that would be my advice is, it is very overwhelming at times and able to get bogged down, but just know that, what we do is important. It's crazy right now. I'm honestly thinking in the next couple weeks, I'm hoping when some of these big decisions have come down on who I get to refund, how much I get to refund them, who's going to be working, who's not, we can kind of settle into then looking forward and moving on. So, I mean, I say just get on the roller coaster right now and ride, and, it'll end. But so hang in there. I mean, what we do is important, and we know that. So that's just my 2 cents.
Mm-hmm.
Hear, hear.
I really do like that, your sentiments, Teresa, and thinking about our profession and NIRSA. We are resilient. We are used to the ever-changing dynamic of the field. We look different now than we did when we were founded. we are doing new and different things now because the world has changed. And as we think about well-being and integrative well-being, I think it's often we are in a place where we're obviously looking out to the and caring for the well-being of others. And I think Becky's comment about I just maybe needed some permission of like we too also can give permission and focus on our personal well-being and the well-being of our staff, so that way then we can be in a better place to help others. So I think that's also one of the big things, I think, a takeaway and learning all about all of this, right? I'm so concerned about everybody else's well-being, but what about mine? We forget sometimes. So perhaps some of those gentle reminders of ride the roller coaster, just let it go, and let's kind of see where this ride takes us, because who knows, right? We have about 15 minutes left, and so I want to open it up if there is anybody else who has a burning question, or perhaps you really were hoping that someone would talk about X. And I want to be able to do that and allow for that to happen here with our last 15 minutes. If anybody has that, please speak up or put something into the chat.
Hello?
Mike, go ahead.
Oh, hey there, everybody. So my concern is one of the things for, sorry, I can't even hear myself with both earplugs in. Professional staff or your safety training staff. So such as things for our lifeguards and when our outdoor pool opens up. Same thing with our summer camps for the kids and everything, getting their CPR and first aid training. I mean, is anybody else kind of worried about the situation of when we reopen, of if we open up in say mid-May and everything's going to be opening up in 2 weeks? What is everything going on with the for that side of the safety staff and personnel? Are you guys doing a lot of trying to plan on doing maybe blended learning classes kind of end of April, beginning of May to start prepping everything up, and then, you know, hit the ground running as soon as we're able to, you know, you're able to reopen, to get those staff trained and certified to continue on with things like the kids' summer camps and lifeguards for the outdoor pools and even the indoor pools on some of the staff recertifications?
Hey, Erin Wells with University of Texas. I would say you can start your blended learning at any point in time. You don't have to wait until the end of April or a couple weeks before. You can start your blended learning now if you wanted to. Like if you were hiring now, start your blended learning now. And then just have your instructors ready to roll to do testings at some point when you come back.
What are you guys doing?
Well, we have started putting together lists. We're going to do blended learning. We've started putting together lists of who needs to get recertified, and we're trying to, we've also put out what we call our intent to return. Like if we were to reopen in May, would you be able to work? If we're opening in June, would you be able to work? So we're kind of trying to put together that and see like, okay, so if we reopen in July, we're going to need 17 more people. So we're going to plan to have to do 17 blended learnings. So we're trying to make plans that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it's like the situation of like, say if we open up on, you know, we're able to open up at June 14th, but won't be able to get people in the facility till June 14th. I'm just spitballing a date out there. It's okay. Technically we can reopen, but we can't reopen because the staff hasn't received their proper training or certifications at that point. That's one of the things that I'm kind of worried about is, okay, we can start the blended learning process, but hey, yeah, we're opening this date, but not really because we have to finish everybody else. So we have all those other parents in the community that are here for the camps and everything else, learn to swim program, the pool that we open up to the community in the summertime. So
yeah, we've talked about slow rolling things as well. So if the university opens back up, say June 3rd, we open a week or two after that. And then we only open one facility at a time and maybe at reduced hours until we can hit those numbers. So those are the types of plans that we're starting to put into place.
Okay.
Mike, Tiffany, sorry, Victoria. Tiffany here from Dallas.
Go ahead, Tiffany.
We are doing something similar in terms of the slow rolling. We know that Our facility won't necessarily be prepared to be opened as soon as the university or government tells us that we're allowed to open. So we're planning around that. So whatever date we have in mind now, which is May 15th, we know our facilities won't be able to open May 15th. So anything that's supposed to start within a week or two of that needs to get pushed back regardless. So maybe that's the mindset that you all can use as well.
No, I like that, the slow rolling. That's a pretty great idea.
Mike, I don't know if it's Matt or he said David C. We are also being given an extension by Red Cross for certs and recerts.
Oh, really? Okay.
Matt, can you say what? Can you type in the chat box again, maybe, or chime in?
Sure. So our contact with the American Red Cross had reached out, and so we have been given the ability to extend those research. So our concern was the students that are expiring, and we're going to need them to come back to work. They wouldn't be able to, but the Red Cross has worked with us, and they're going to extend all of those 90 days.
Oh, really? Okay. Is that just for you guys, or is that nationwide?
That's nationwide.
Oh, okay, cool. That's good to hear. That's a little bit of relief. Hi, little one.
I believe it's only for lifeguarding and C Pro though. If your students are only lay responder, they don't get that extension because they always have the opportunity to challenge. So it's only those lifeguard and C Pro.
Oh, okay. So the camp staff would not be. Okay.
If you go to the Red Cross Learning Center, you don't have to sign in or have an account. You can, up at the top right, it says their COVID-19 response, and it talks a lot about how that process is working.
Okay.
I think that as well, I think you all have tapped into now moving into a space of reopening and that phasing and the planning for when things do ramp up. I know we're still in the middle of how do we function? How does life work right now?
Yeah.
But I also feel like, right, as part of that mid-level manager team, and how are we going to make decisions as well about whatever the university's decisions are, how will it impact us, and how will we then support and communicate with the areas that we oversee. Is there anything else? We got about 8 minutes.
Victoria, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate hearing from people, and I know we're all working under different circumstances depending on our own government, our own university and everything, but I think it's really helpful for us to hear from people so that, you know, perhaps that's something we could take back and go, hey, have we tried this? And so thank you for everybody who jumped on.
We are hosting another Associate Director Roundtable next week. So I'll put out some more info to see if there is additional information that people are searching for, or if you want to hop back on. I do intend to still do some type of theme because it is going to be on Friday. So today was headgear. And so I want to thank all of you who participated and favored headgear. We might as well have some fun as we are kind of navigating this new world, right? Oh, look, I love it. So, you know, let's keep going, right? NIRSA is here for you. NIRSA wants to know what your needs are and how we can help provide spaces to come together in this new reality, but as well as afterwards, like how are we going to continue to learn from each other, share ideas, provide educational opportunities for members, because, right, who knows what our new reality will be when this is all done. So I want to thank everybody for continuing to hang on and for participating and sharing, and in some cases being really authentic and vulnerable in this space with some of the struggles that we're having. It is life. It's what we're doing. So if you or somebody that you know would like, and the registration link that is available on the NIRSA website, which is the same place where you registered for this one. After this particular session, the chat box will be downloaded. So I know there were some great links in there. If anybody has anything else they want to throw out there before I end the meeting, please feel free to do so. And then this session will be recorded so that others can access it, or if you want to return to it.
For you extroverts, virtual hug to everyone.
NIRSA, y'all take care.